They say, yeah, this idea is funny and all, but your story is about a fictional dictator. Why not make it about a real dictator? And so Seth and Evan changed the script, and it eventually becomes a story about North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. And so in 2013, they make this Kim Jong-un comedy movie. It's called The Interview. And Seth is in it, James Franco's in it, Randall Park plays Kim Jong-un, and of course, the premise is a bumbling talk show host is assigned by the CIA to get an interview with Kim Jong-un, and during the interview, he has to assassinate him. And of course, the movie makes Kim Jong look really goofy, while also highlighting some of the ridiculous myths that he claims about himself. Like, he claims that he always plays a perfect round of golf. He claims that he invented the hamburger. He claims that he can talk to dolphins. He claims that he doesn't have an anus because he doesn't need one, because he doesn't even have to go to the bathroom at all, because his body is a perfect machine that doesn't create waste. It's all absurd. And so anyway, some of these myths they reference in the movie, which just ends up making Kim Jong look like a huge dork.
Do you do karaoke? Yes, I do, Dave.
And of course, in the end of the movie, he ends up getting blown up and dying. Spoiler alert. Anyway, so they shoot this comedy movie, and Seth and Evan direct it, and they're all prepared to release it. And in 2014, they drop the trailer for the world to see, and they start getting a little buzz around their movie. However, not everyone is thrilled with the idea of The Interview. Apparently, the North Korean government sees this trailer, which means Kim Jong-un himself would have seen this trailer. Now, here's the thing about dictators. They always present themselves as like strong men who are so powerful and confident. However, when you start making jokes about them, they tend to flip out and turn into like a weak little crybaby. I mean, these clowns will execute people over like a punchline. So I imagine Kim Jong-un saw this trailer and he got his feelings all hurt and like he's upset. I mean, how could someone make a comedy movie making fun of him, the supreme leader, the man with the perfect body and no anus? Okay, but then, 2 weeks after the trailer drops, a representative of North Korea sends a letter to the UN calling out this American comedy movie that insulted their supreme leader. And that rep says that to allow such a film to be made is, and I'm not making this up, an act of war. And that they want the US to ban the production and distribution of the movie, otherwise the US is basically sponsoring terrorism. Not only that, a few days after that, North Korean state TV releases a statement from their government threatening that there will be stern and merciless retaliation against the United States if that movie is released. And so, yeah, Kim Jong-un and North Korea are pissed, and the movie isn't even out yet.
North Korea says the United States is on the verge of committing an act of war.
And so then Seth and Evan are summoned to meet up with the heads of Sony in their offices. And they acknowledge that North Korea is pissed. And they're like, look, in the movie, you exploded Kim Jong-un's head in a really graphic way. And so, over the next couple of months, the studio asks them to make changes to that death scene, to tone it down a little, and maybe make it a bit less graphic. Thinking, yeah, you know, maybe these changes will ease the tensions with North Korea. But, unfortunately, they don't ease shit. They don't ease tensions at all. And so then, Sony execs get nervous, and they decide to delay the release of the movie for about 2 months, thinking, yeah, you know, maybe things will cool down. Until... oh, but things don't cool down. Not long after that announcement, one day, Sony Entertainment, their employees go to work, just like any other normal day. And they go to log in to their work computers. And instead of their normal desktop, boom, there's a creepy red skeleton appearing on the screen, along with the words, hacked by GOP. Sony has been hacked. A group of anonymous hackers who call themselves the Guardians of Peace have hacked into the computer networks of Sony. And these guys got access to everything. Internal emails, internal data, employee records, employee phone numbers, addresses, and social security numbers. They get access to several Sony movies that hadn't even been released yet. And then, kaboom! These hackers release all of it to the internet for anyone to see. They got got all their employees' private information, all their internal communications, some unreleased movies that are just now out there for free for anyone to watch, which causes Sony to lose millions in revenue. Allegedly, they lost around $200 million over this hack. And funny enough, these hackers specifically want Sony to stop the release of Seth's movie, The Interview. And they want any mention of it removed from the internet somehow, as if Sony controls the entire internet. Now, the North Korean government claims that they have nothing to do with Guardians of Peace or these Sony hacks. However, the broad consensus is that, yeah, they're lying, they're behind the whole thing. Anyway, about 2 weeks later, the Guardians of Peace hack Sony again. This time, they claim that they'll stop if Sony agrees not to release the movie making Kim Jong-un look bad. Oh, but it gets worse, because a week after that, they threaten a terrorist attack on the movie theater in New York where the movie is premiering. Plus, they say that they'll attack any theater that shows the movie. So yeah, now it's getting serious. And so, bam, Seth and James Franco cancel all their publicity appearances. And Sony hires personal security to follow them around because now they're under a serious threat. While Sony, they pull all television advertising for the movie. Shortly after that, several major theater chains announced that they will no longer screen the film as they are now worried about a terror threat. And so Sony has no other choice. They have to cancel the wide theatrical release of the movie altogether. And so the fate of this comedy movie that Seth and Evan worked so hard on is left hanging in the balance. And if that isn't crazy enough, the fucking president of the United States gives a press conference, and he has to make a statement on it.
Sony's a corporation, suffered significant damage. There were threats against its employees.
And so basically, he says that he understands why Sony canceled the theatrical release because, their employees were threatened. But he also says that he thinks Sony made a mistake.
We cannot have a situation in which some dictator someplace can start imposing censorship here in the United States. Imagine what they start doing when they see a documentary.
You're not doing this shit right now, bro. You're not doing this shit right now,
So
bro.
then, after the president's speech, execs at Sony decide to change their mind and they reverse course again. And that they are going to figure out a way to release the movie in theaters. And at the last minute, they get the movie a limited time release in about 300 independent theaters in the US, and they get it wide theatrical release in the UK. And so Seth and Evan's movie is saved. And the hackers, they go away, they don't do anything else. No one was hurt, no one died, and Kim Jong-un went back to his normal life of being a dictator with apparently no anus. So what really happened to actor Matthew Perry, and why is this doctor facing over 100 years in prison? Well, it all starts with this kid, Matthew. And Matthew's a teenager during this time, living in Canada, and bro has a problem. He doesn't feel like he's good enough, like he's an outsider who will never be loved, and this is an overwhelming feeling for him. But one day, when he's a little older, he discovers something that makes that feeling go away. Alcohol. So Matthew starts drinking regularly, and as time goes on, he starts to grow dependent on alcohol. But it's okay that he's drinking right now because he has a long-term plan. He's gonna become a famous actor one day, and fame will make him stop feeling like he's not good enough. And so he moves to Los Angeles, and he starts going on auditions. And he gets some stuff, but then in 1994, when he's 24 years old, he's cast as Chandler on the sitcom Friends. And Matthew nails this role. He improvises some of the best lines in the show.
You have to stop the Q-tip when there's resistance.
And as you already know, this show is not only a hit, it becomes the biggest show on the planet. So of course, Matthew blows up. And all of a sudden, he's a huge celebrity now, and people all over the world love him. In fact, this show is so successful, the whole cast goes on to become some of the highest paid actors of all time, making over $1 million a week. However, even though Matthew has finally achieved everything he wanted, all this fame and money doesn't do what he thought it would do, and he still feels like he isn't good enough. And so he keeps drinking every night, and he does painkillers, and sometimes he does harder drugs, and his addiction starts to get really bad. In fact, it gets so bad, he films entire seasons of Friends without even remembering filming them. And then, one day, his co-star, Jennifer Aniston, comes into his dressing room, and she tells him straight up, "Matthew, I can smell the alcohol on you. I think you need help." And there, he learns that the whole cast is worried about him. And so he starts going to rehab, and he attends rehab several times throughout the filming of the series. But even with all that going on, somehow Bro is able to make it through all 10 seasons, and the show is still a giant success when it ends in 2004. And nearly 20 years go by, and it's 2023, and Matthew is 54 now, and he's still battling with his addiction. And at this point, Matthew's gone to rehab 15 times, he's done weekly therapy, he's attended over 6,000 AA meetings, he's spent over $7 million trying to get clean. But somehow, it keeps coming back, along with that horrible feeling that he's not good enough. But then, one day, he gets a little hope. Matthew goes to a doctor to get help with depression and anxiety, and the doctor treats him with a different kind of drug. Ketamine. And surprisingly, this actually works. Matthew starts to get a bit of relief from this awful feeling that he's been having for so long. But here's the thing about ketamine though. It can be a dangerous drug, so when it's prescribed, you're supposed to only have a limited amount of it, and you're supposed to use it with a doctor in a clinic so that they can monitor your vitals and make sure that, you don't die. And so Matthew, of course, he does it this way. But ketamine only lasts a couple of hours, and he wants to feel it all the time. And so he's got to up the dose and take more every day, multiple times a day. And that is when he meets this guy, who we'll call Dr. P. Dr. P is a local physician, and when he meets Matthew, the famous former Friends star, he immediately sees dollar signs. And Dr. P, he has no experience with ketamine therapy treatments, nor does he have any legitimate medical purpose to give ketamine to Matthew. But he doesn't care. He wants to get paid, allegedly. And so he comes up with a plan to be Matthew's plug, his go-to doctor for ketamine. But Dr. P, he can't get the amount of ketamine he needs, so he enlists another physician to help him get it. This guy, Dr. Chavez. And so Dr. P allegedly goes to Dr. Chavez and he's like, "Hey, want to take advantage of a rich TV star's drug addiction?" And Dr. Chavez hears this and he's like, "All right." And so Dr. Chavez starts writing fraudulent prescriptions, and by doing this, he's able to get ketamine for Dr. P. And they start texting each other back and forth about how much they're going to charge Matthew. Dr. P's exact words in his text, he says, "I wonder how much this moron will pay. Let's find out." That is a direct quote from Matthew Perry's doctor talking about his own patient. Now, for context, a vial of ketamine costs them around $12. Dr. P charges Matthew $2,000. That is a hell of a markup. And so you can see how pretty quickly Dr. P is allegedly making bank off of Matthew's addiction. And so he wants to keep going. Now, obviously, he's a practicing physician. He doesn't have the schedule to be hanging around Matthew all the time to monitor him while he's on these drugs. And so he teaches this guy to help, Kenny. And Kenny is Matthew's personal live-in assistant. And Dr. P shows Kenny how to inject Matthew so that he can get the high he wants, even though Kenny is just a personal assistant. He has absolutely no medical training. And so now Matthew is getting these injections at home every day without medical supervision. And one day, as you probably could have predicted, it all goes wrong. Because Matthew is at home. He's chilling in his hot tub. And his hot tub seems to be in his backyard, so it overlooks a nice view. And this is his favorite spot to chill. And this picture is a little dark, but you can see him here. And here, he gets Kenny to inject him with a big shot of ketamine. Then, Kenny leaves. He leaves to go run some errands. And Matthew is there all alone. And at some point, Matthew is so high that he, unfortunately, overdoses, and he slowly slips into the water.
Tributes are being paid this morning to the Friends actor Matthew Perry, who has died at the age of 54.
So of course, this is big news, and it blows up, and people are understandably devastated. I mean, he was a huge star in the 90s, and to this day, Friends is still very popular on streaming. And Dr. P, he hears about this news, and he's probably like, oh, because he realizes that he's Matthew's doctor, so they're definitely going to blame him. And then, allegedly, he starts falsifying documents. Like, he writes a fake treatment plan for Matthew, and he starts claiming that he gave him much lower doses of ketamine than he actually did. However, the feds, they aren't stupid. Pretty quickly, they figure out that these documents are bullshit, meant to influence their investigation, and so, bam, they arrest him. Here's what he looks like in real life. And also, bam, they arrest Dr. Chavez, and they end up arresting Kenny too. And they also arrested 2 other drug dealers connected to his death. Meanwhile, Dr. P is currently out on bail, and he's awaiting his trial, and he's facing over 100 years in prison for his role in this. However, that hasn't stopped him from practicing medicine, because bro is apparently still a practicing physician, and according to health grades, he's currently accepting new patients. Oh, and by the way, they haven't actually been to trial yet, so all of this is alleged. So this is Hulk Hogan, the former WWE wrestler. But we're gonna call him Terry, because that's his real name. But one day, Terry allegedly cheats on his wife with one of his daughter's friends. I mean, they're all adults, but still, gross. And eventually, when Terry's wife learns about his cheating, she gets pissed. And she goes and she files for divorce. And poor Terry, he's just devastated, and he moves into a hotel so that his ex-wife and his kids can stay in their house. And as soon as he's alone, the weight of the whole situation hits him, and he's an absolute wreck. So Terry starts hanging out a lot more with his best friend, this guy, Bubba, aka the radio host, Bubba the Love Sponge. And he also hangs out with Bubba's wife, this woman, Heather. And Heather and Bubba, they're like a really fun couple. But here's the thing about Bubba and Heather. They have what you would call an open marriage. Specifically, Bubba likes to watch his wife smash with other men. Whatever, that's their business. However, it just so happens that Heather thinks Terry is fine, and I guess he thinks she's aight too. Because one day, Bubba goes to Terry and he's like, hey, do you wanna like smash with my wife while I watch? And Terry, he's like, cool. And soon enough, Terry's going to their house, and he and Heather smash. And I guess it's a pretty good time for everyone, because about a week later, they smash again. And then I guess they smash a third time too. And because I guess Heather's a good friend, when they're done smashing, Terry feels okay about opening up about his personal problems, about his kids and stuff like that. So I guess Terry just feels lucky to have good friends like Bubba and Heather. Until 5 years later, suddenly, bam, a website called The Dirty, they post some images online of Terry and Heather smashing. Those images are actually screenshots from a video of Terry and Heather smashing. And Terry finds out about this and he's like, a video? We smashed, but like we didn't film it. How was there a video? Oh, but there was a video. There were several videos, because 5 years before, Bubba had secretly set up a camera in the bedroom to record Terry and Heather smashing, without Terry's consent. And Bubba put that footage on a DVD, so now there's a DVD of them smashing. Then someone, they believe it was an ex-employee of Bubba's, someone steals this DVD from Bubba and was trying to sell it to some internet gossip websites. That's how The Dirty got the screenshots. Well, eventually, this gossipy website, it's called Gawker, it gets a hold of that DVD. And they write an article about it, and they publish about 2 minutes of this 30-minute sex tape on their website. And this Gawker article blows up, getting over 5 million page views. And now the whole world has access to a piece of Terry's non-consensual sex tape. Imagine what a nightmare that would be. You just wake up one day and the whole world has access to your private
Bro, did you know
smash
some
tape,
gliders are
your
faster than
family,
jet
your
dragons?
friends, your boss, anyone at any time could tune
that
in
grappling
and
gun
see
hook that you was talking
that
about.
intimate
Trick?
side of you. Ugh.
Oh, you
Of
grappling
course,
hook
poor
and then
Terry,
glide?
he's shocked, and he's
Fascinating,
he had
Dragon,
no
bro.
idea that his friends were secretly filming him. And of course, he feels violated. He has every right to feel that way. So he goes and he gets a lawyer. And this lawyer reaches out to Gawker and they ask them to take the video down. And Gawker, they're like, nah, bro. And this is a huge mistake. Because keep in mind, throughout this whole story, Gawker could have just taken it down and this dispute may have gone away. But that's not what they do. They leave the video up. And they argue that Hulk Hogan's a public figure and that his sex tape is actually newsworthy, and therefore publishing the tape on their website is protected by the First Amendment. While Terry, on the other hand, he argues that's bullshit and that this violates his privacy. So then Terry, I guess, has no other choice, and he files a lawsuit against Bubba and his wife, and he also files another lawsuit against Gawker. And he sues Gawker for $100 million in damages. Here's the thing about lawsuits, though. They're expensive, like really expensive, even for guys like Terry. Especially because allegedly Terry's ex-wife took 70% of their joint assets in their divorce. So the last thing Terry wants to do is spend millions of dollars in legal fees trying to take a company like Gawker down. And that is when this guy steps in, Peter Thiel. And Peter Thiel, he's a gay conservative billionaire. And Peter Thiel was also in the closet for a long time. Because, you know, when you're conservative, being gay doesn't always go over well with your fellow conservatives. So, he stayed in the closet. And years before Gawker published Terry's Smash Tape, Gawker had published some articles about Peter Thiel, and they had publicly outed him as gay. And they put out some other articles making fun of him and stuff like that. And this, of course, really pisses Peter Thiel off. But like, yeah, you shouldn't just out people before they're ready. It's wrong. So he has every right to be mad. And unfortunately for Peter Thiel, at the time, there was nothing he could do about it. Because, you know, free speech and stuff. So Peter Thiel has hated Gawker ever since then. And taking the site down has become a personal goal of his. And this billionaire is willing to spend a lot of money to make that happen. Bro is just petty like that. So he learns about Terry's lawsuit, and he has his lawyers reach out to Terry's, and this billionaire starts secretly paying Terry's legal bills and bankrolling this Gawker Smash Tape lawsuit. But then, at some point, kaboom! Another bomb drops, and a few more bits from the secret Smash Tapes make their way onto the internet. And these ones are arguably much worse for Terry, because they're not just of him smashing. At least one of them is of Terry venting and ranting to Heather one time after they smash. And Terry is there, on video, complaining about his daughter's boyfriend, who happens to be black. And old Terry, he drops the N-word, with the hard R, several times. And not only that, he goes on a whole tirade about black people. And it's really bad. Like, shockingly bad. So WWE hears about this and they drop his contract, essentially forcing him out. And they remove everything about him from their WWE website, and he ultimately gets booted from the Wrestling Hall of Fame. And Terry has to like go out and do an interview and like publicly apologize, and it's all embarrassing for him.
Are you a racist?
No, I'm not. I'm not a racist. I never should have said what I said. It was wrong. I'm embarrassed by it.
But anyway, aside from that, after 3 years in court, the trial of Terry versus Gawker finally concludes. And ultimately, the jury agrees with Terry. And they award him $140 million in damages, which is more than he originally sued for. And a few months later, due to this lawsuit, Gawker officially files for bankruptcy and they shut down. And after filing for bankruptcy, I believe they ended up settling and paying Terry $31 million of the money they owed him. So, in the end, they leaked his sex tape and his racism, and he got $31 million for it. So, shout out to Florida, I guess. Look, I'm not saying Katy Perry unalived a nun, but you gotta hear this story. So this is Katy Perry, the pop star. You know Katy Perry. And one day in 2014, Katy decides to take some of that pop star money and buy herself a big-ass mansion in Los Angeles. So she looks around and she finds one for sale. This monstrosity. Now, Katie apparently really wants this house. Like, she'll do anything for it. Maybe even unalive someone. I'm not saying she unalived someone, but, you know, just listen to this story. So here's the thing about this house. It is huge. 30,000 square feet. It's even got a pool shaped like a freaking fish. In fact, this house is so big that it's actually not a house at all. Traditionally, it's been a convent where a bunch of elderly nuns live. And we'll get back to these nuns. But first, we gotta talk about Catholic priests, specifically ones who diddle boys. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, abuse in the Catholic Church as a whole was rampant for decades, particularly in the Archdiocese in Los Angeles. And an archdiocese is sort of like a collection of churches. So this collection of churches in Los Angeles had some pretty serious sexual abuse accusations thrown at them in the early 90s and 2000s. And one day, boom, they get sued. And so, in 2007, the Archdiocese agrees to settle with the victims of the abuse and pay them a settlement of $660 million. And so now, these churches need to pay off this huge molestation settlement, so they decide to make some money by selling a property they own. That property? The convent. However, there's a problem. Those elderly nuns I mentioned, they live there. Now these nuns, we'll just call them the nuns. There's only 5 of them, but they've been living there for decades. But the Archdiocese is like, whatever bitches, we own this place. And in 2011, boom, they kick them all out. And this kicks off a whole dispute. Because see, the nuns feel like they own the property. Because back in 1971, they originally pooled all of their money together and purchased it themselves, using every dollar they had saved. However, for some reason, the Archdiocese feels like the property belongs to them. And because they feel like it belongs to them, they're like, "You, we're selling it!" And that is when in 2014, along comes Katy Perry, looking to take some of her pop star money and buy herself a big-ass mansion. And she sees this convent and she loves it. She'll do anything to get it. She wants to turn it into a house. So she offers $14.5 million. And the Archdiocese, they accept, like immediately. They don't ask the nuns permission or anything. They just agree and the deal starts moving forward. And so of course the nuns are pissed. I mean, they've lived there for decades and the church is just gonna come along and sell it out from under them? And to make it even worse, the nuns look Katy Perry up. I mean, they don't know who she is. They're nuns. And let's just say they are not super impressed with her work. Because, you know, she has songs like I Kissed a Girl and You're So Gay. But specifically, in one interview back in the day, Katy Perry made a joke about selling her soul to the devil.
It didn't work out, and so I sold my soul to the devil.
And so the nuns, they can't let this slide. I mean, they can't allow their old home to be occupied by someone who sold their soul to the devil. Meanwhile, the Archdiocese, to their credit, they don't want the nuns to be upset. They want all of this to go down smoothly. And so they arrange a meeting at the property between the nuns and Katy Perry. And so one day, in 2015, Katy Perry shows up to the place, and she's trying to charm these nuns, insisting that she didn't really literally sell her soul to the devil, that she's actually a rather religious person herself. And in Katy Perry's defense, she did grow up in an extremely Christian household. Like, both of her parents were Pentecostal pastors. They were only allowed to listen to gospel music. Her parents were so extreme Christian, she wasn't allowed to refer to deviled eggs as deviled eggs. She had to call them angeled eggs. And I'm not making that up. And so Katy explains this to these nuns. Then she shows them the Jesus tattoo that she has on her wrist. And I'm not sure how impressed nuns generally are with tattoos, but whatever, she showed them. Then, in order to further convince them of how super Christian she is, she offers to sing Oh Happy Day, a well-known church song. And she's gonna sing it a cappella. But she has to pull out her phone to look up the lyrics, which has the nuns giving her the side eye. Anyway, it's a super awkward meeting, and the nuns aren't impressed, and their minds aren't changed one bit. However, the Catholic Church is very powerful, and they are determined to sell this property to Katy. And unfortunately, there isn't much the nuns can do. Until At some point, the nuns decide two can play at this game. I mean, they feel like they own the property fair and square. And so they come up with a plan to sell it themselves. And that is when this woman steps in. Her name's Hollister. And Hollister's 54, she's a rich businesswoman, she owns a lot of restaurants, and she comes along and offers to buy the place from the nuns and keep it open and running by turning it into a boutique hotel. And I guess the nuns are cool with that because they agree to sell it behind the archdiocese's back. So now you have two competing sales of the same property happening at the same time. But whatever, the nuns, they hand over the deed to Hollister and she moves in right away. And Katy Perry, oh, Katy Perry is not going to let this slide. She feels like her purchase of the place was already in motion and legal. So she's like, oh, hell no. And she files a lawsuit. But not against the nuns, because that would be terrible PR. Katy Perry sues a bunch of elderly nuns. No, rather, she sues Hollister, claiming that her purchase of the place is not legit. And this turns into an all-out legal war. I mean, two wealthy women battling it out in court over this former nun convent. And this legal battle goes on for years. And I'm sure it's very stressful for all of them, especially the 80-year-old nuns involved. But in 2017, they finally go to trial. And at the end of it all, a judge rules that the nuns, for some legal reason, do need permission from the Vatican in order to sell the convent. Which means Hollister's purchase of the property is invalid. Which means Katy can move forward with buying the house from the archdiocese. She won. And to make it worse for Hollister, right after that, a jury finds that she's also guilty of malice and fraud in her attempt to interfere with the sale of this property. So now she's ordered to pay Katy Perry and the church $10 million in damages. And that is a lot of money. In fact, it's so much money that it literally bankrupts Hollister. Like she has to go to bankruptcy court. And so then, one day in 2018, she goes to bankruptcy court. And two of the nuns go with her because they're all like friends now. I mean, they've been in this lawsuit together for a long time, and they're there to support their friend. And then on the steps of the courthouse, one of the nuns speaks to the news media, and she pleads for Katy Perry to stop. Like, stop with all the legal actions against her friend.
Please stop. It's not doing anyone any good except hurting a lot of people.
And sadly, those words would be this nun's last words. Because hours later, in the courtroom, she collapses and dies from a heart attack. She was 89 years old. And one of the other nuns claims the heart attack was caused by stress directly related to this Katy Perry lawsuit. I'm not saying Katy Perry unalived a nun, I'm just saying this other nun thinks so. Anyway, at the end of it all, Katy still needs approval from the Vatican to purchase the property. And they're unable to work out a deal. And so her option to buy the place expires, and everyone just kind of moves on. So, in the end, after all that, no one got the property. You know this famous singer Marvin Gaye? Well, one day, Marvin gets into an argument with his dad. And this argument gets heated, like really heated. And they're yelling at each other, and they're screaming, and then bam, it turns violent. And then suddenly, his dad pulls out a pew-pew, and he aims it, and blam, he shoots Marvin in the chest. Which is exactly what Marvin had planned. Let me explain. Now, in order for this to all make sense, let's rewind back to when Marvin is 8 years old. And now, he's just a kid here, but he actually has quite a terrible life. Now, his dad, who we'll just call Dad is a minister, and he drinks a lot, and he's also really violent and extremely strict. Like, he'll often discipline little Marvin for things like wetting his bed, being a minute late home from school, or reciting Bible passages wrong. And when I say discipline, I mean, yeah, Dad's a real jerk. And little Marvin's not the only one Dad's abusive to. He apparently gets violent with Marvin's mom, too, who we'll just call Mom. And like Dad will get physical with her, and he also verbally abuses her, and also sleeps around on her a lot. He sounds like a real winner. And throughout all this, apparently Mom wants to leave him, but unfortunately she won't, because she's religious, and I guess divorce is against their religion. So anyway, Mom and Dad and Marvin and his siblings, they all just keep living in this extremely chaotic household. And to make it worse, little Marvin loves secular music. But Dad discourages him from pursuing it, calling it the devil's music. But luckily, little Marvin just keeps on singing and playing as his mom is always there to encourage him. But then, everything changes. Time passes and little Marvin grows up, and he actually becomes a professional singer-songwriter. And bro has a hell of a voice. And so he works hard and he tours and he writes a bunch of songs, and soon enough, his career blows up and everyone knows who he is. And he's out here selling albums and he's selling out tours and he's got songs on the radio. He actually has 41 songs make the top 40 charts. 41, including his most famous song, Let's Get It On, which is a song that I'd like to dedicate to your mother. My point is, despite being discouraged by his dad when he was young, Marvin ends up becoming the biggest soul singer in the world. And he ends up having an incredible career in music. Until... Fast forward a couple of decades to the early 80s, and Marvin is 44 years old now. In his career, it's still doing well. Like, he's still out there playing and making hits. In fact, he's just released one of his biggest songs ever, Sexual Healing, and it just hit #1. So all that's doing really well. But, unfortunately, poor guy still has a problem. He's super depressed, like clinically depressed. And he's been battling this depression for years, and it just doesn't seem to get any better. Not only that, he's suffering from a drug habit. Mostly, what I like to call Coca-Cola. And this habit only adds to his depression problem. Not to mention, the drug habit is also making him really paranoid. Like, really paranoid. He always believes he's being pursued by people who want to unalive him. In fact, his paranoia has gotten so bad that when he tours, he always wears a bulletproof vest right up until it's time to get on stage, and then he takes it off and he performs. And if all that isn't bad enough, he's having money problems. And I know that sounds crazy because he's the biggest soul singer in the world, but he's actually like $9 million in debt. And he owes the IRS $4.5 million in back taxes. And they've already come after him and seized a bunch of his assets. So things are not looking good for Marvin. And so, yeah, understandably, he's bummed out and he's trying to pull his life back together, and he ends up moving into the house that he bought his parents years before. They still live there. So now, at 44 years old, he's living with his parents again. And unfortunately, in this household, things aren't going well. Like, tensions are really high. Like, Marvin's dad, he's still a heavy drinker, and he's still allegedly mistreating Marvin's mom. And as much as Marvin has tried to get clean, he's still using that Coca-Cola he likes so much, and he's still resentful towards his dad for the way he treated him and his mom during his childhood. And to make it even worse, there are firearms all over the house. Remember, Marvin's a paranoid guy, so he buys a lot of pew-pews for protection. He even buys one for his dad for protection. Dun, dun, dun. Regardless, at some point while living there, life starts getting to be too much for him. The addiction, the depression, the paranoia, the money problems, he's kind of losing his mind, and he seems to be self-aware of it. And despite being an incredibly successful and talented superstar, he just doesn't want to exist anymore. And this is where he allegedly comes up with a plan. A plan to get rid of his dad while saving his mom. And according to testimony from his siblings, Marvin's plan was this. First, he'll get his own dad to unalive him. Then, police will come and his dad will get thrown in prison, which will then finally save his mom by getting his father out of her life. And I know that sounds wild, but that is what his siblings believe his plan was. And so, finally, the right day comes, and it's otherwise a pretty normal day. And they're all at home, and Dad is looking for some insurance document, and he can't find it. And he insists it's all his wife's fault. And he's screaming at her like, "This is all your fault!" But Mom is upstairs, and Dad is yelling up at her from downstairs. And so Marvin hears all this, and he gets mad, and he starts screaming back, defending his mom like, "Shut the hell up, old man!" or whatever. And this pisses Dad off. and he is not gonna let this slide, and he just snaps. And he runs upstairs, and then boom, he busts into the bedroom, and he screams at Marvin's mom, and Marvin's like, oh hell no, and he steps up, and he pushes Dad out of the room, and suddenly this turns into an all-out fist fight, and then pow, Marvin punches his dad, and bam, he kicks him, and then Dad falls to the floor, and Mom is screaming at them to stop, and so Marvin does. But then Dad gets up, and he walks over to his bedroom, and he grabs his pew-pew, the same one that Marvin had bought him for protection. And he walks over to Marvin, and he points it at his chest, and blam, he fires. And Marvin falls to the floor. And as he's lying on the ground, blam, Dad shoots him again. Meanwhile, Marvin's brother, who lives out back in the guest house, he hears the gunshots, and he comes running. And he comes inside the home, and he sees his brother there on the floor dying, and he's like, oh shit, and he runs over to him, and he holds him, and according to him, Marvin's last words are, I got what I wanted, I couldn't do it myself, so I had him do it. And then, he unfortunately passes away. Just like he had allegedly planned.
Seriously?
So, step one of his plan is complete. And so then, of course, police show up, and bam, they arrest Dad. And I don't have a mugshot of him, but I do have this picture of him getting arrested.
Soul singer Marvin Gaye, whose career spanned over 25 years, including the birth of the Motown sound to the 80s, was shot to death yesterday in Los Angeles.
So now that Dad
By
is
his
arrested,
own
step
dad?
2 of Marvin's plan is he gets charged with voluntary manslaughter. And despite unaliving his own son, he only gets probation. Which means that step 2 of Marvin's plan is actually not complete. Regardless, the good news is, after Marvin's death, Marvin's mom eventually does file for divorce from Dad. Good for her. So, step 3 of Marvin's plan is in fact complete. And ultimately, he got what he wanted. It's wild.
Welcome to our A to Z Jungle Series Season 2. Just like the first season in this series, we're going to be playing every single champion in the jungle, and we have to win a game before moving on to the next champion in the list. However, in Season 2, this challenge will be even more difficult than the last. This time, we're not allowed to build any of the items we used to win in our last A to Z Jungle Series, including even the boots.
So, oh wait, I need to awaken them? Is that what I'm making it? Yeah, I think I need to awaken them. this sword come from? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This guy is ice and water. How does that work? I guess whichever one I give to him gonna have to work. Still at 80. Why are you at 200? Why is it so bad? Is it because of the truss? No, your truss is at 10. Tree grinding. Time to get some relics. Alright, where are these materials at? I mean, where are these pals at? Looking at ground. Oh, you nothing. There's food over there. I'm grinding right now. I know you don't know what it means to grind, but you're gonna know what it means to grind one day. There you go. I'm gonna get you some canned food in the morning. Looking at me like I owe you something. Wait a minute. Am I going the wrong way? Yes, I am. Oh my god. My pal ain't down. Get out, man. Do your thing. I don't even need you to kill. I just want you to be out. Activate your ability. Get more souls. Nice relics. Nice, nice, nice. Take a sip of this holy water. I'm gonna just let them live. I don't know why. Some enemy just told me to let them live. You better not jump up. Hey, what you looking up there for? There's nothing up there for you. There's no war in Bar Sing Tai, okay? There's nothing up there for you. Look away. What's that? I'm watching you. I'm watching you, minion. I'm watching you. It wasn't me. I didn't kill your brother. It was a demon behind me. What are these? Are these his balls? The fuck? Anyways, keep moving. Nothing happened. Look at all them fishes. Nothing over here. Bruh. Back the fuck up, you ugly looking fish. They remind me of Wishcash. They're so slow. Has to be Wishcash. Airball. Twice. Man, get the fuck away from the door. Stop being annoying. I love when I think they have a good passive and then I capture them in something like bottomless stomach. Oh yeah, I took 2 grenades because I have a bottomless stomach. It's crazy. Wait. I be forgetting about this. I need to get out the bathroom. You're being annoying. Dead or alive. Dead or alive. And I wanted. This bolt down. I need to be doing research to help with the freaking raid. Yeah, next time I go back to the base, I need to touch some research. Hey. Only I do killing around here, sir. Only I do the killing around here. You spectate. Improve my research because I get defense and attack buffs for all the pals fighting in the fight. But does that affect the final boss? Because technically that's not my base. I don't know. The ugly. One ball. What is one ball going to do? That's one way to get them out. But where are the items? Where did the items go? Whatever. Whatever, bro. I just got robbed. Air holes. I'm just wasting grenades out here because you know I'm wealthy. I'm rich. Ain't that right, Chad? I'm wealthy and I'm rich. No, I am not. That's a joke. That's an absolute joke. All my precious grenades. Who needs a flyer? Flyers are so outdated and overrated. I got legs. And a gale claw. See this gale claw right here? That's all you need. That's all you need. Wait. A gale claw is only rank 1? Well, we need to go change that. Told you it wasn't me. I didn't kill your friends. Nice knowing ya. I never noticed they hopped on one foot the whole fucking time. Scared the shit out of me. Most of the time, you just gotta grind. Am I at 1,000 relics yet? Nope, not even close. My bag not full. I got like a whole line of stuff to collect. No eggs. Stay away from eggs. Oh my god, I was dying, I didn't even notice. My bad. Thought your dead body was some materials. Oh my god. Nope, that don't look like 1,000. down there. Don't run, it's too late. I see you, don't run. You're just materials to me. Oh, look. And I miss. Is it safe to take off this gas mask? Seems so. Hey, better, better swing.
Ho!
About 850. About 150 more. Oh God, no. Oh, y'all gonna have to die today. I don't even know what the hell y'all doing up here. I don't want to kill y'all, but later will just float by while I got my pal out. That's instant death. Do the thing. No, not that. Not a fighter. Do not come out here and die. What? What the? Yo. Nah. No. I don't tolerate cheating. Oh my God. Deal with that. Can you kill him? Nice. I know it looks like animal cruelty, but this is just for the materials. It's just for the material, guys. I'm sorry. That's why we got respawns, you know? We got respawns. God. Where did this body go? Sorry, Sean Paul. Getting the ball or you going back? down these relics. Water. Holy water. There it is. I'm like, where the fuck?
he needs a break. Right, guys, with that one, letter H is done. Way one and done, beautiful. And we are on to the letter A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. I, the letter I.
I forgot how to count.
I hate monkeys. Welcome back in, everyone, to One Piece Chapter 1189's post-game show. Just in case you have monkey brains, I'll tell you guys exactly what we like to do here. We like to go through the comment section just to see what everybody's saying in lieu of this latest chapter of One Piece. How do you feel about Luffy getting stabbed one more time? How do you feel about Super Samas? And what did you think about the blade-weapon of the 19 Kings reveal? I'm here to see all these opinions. So with that being said, let's hop right into that very first comment, which I've seen this floating around, and it is absolutely hilarious. But they say Tashigi's dream becomes more and more impossible each time Oda reveals more sword lore to us. Just in case you guys forgot what Tashigi's dream actually is, I don't blame you, but Tashigi wants to get all the named blades away from heinous criminals across the world. That includes Zoro's swords, that includes Mihawk's sword. Now, previously not, but now that he is a wanted criminal, yes, Mihawk is on the list. Hell, Whitebeard was on the list at one point. If Gold Roger were still alive today, his sword would also be up for grabs in Tashigi's mind. Tashigi's dream is absolutely ridiculous. When it comes to One Piece characters, I tend to give them a lot of leeway when it comes to whether or not they'll achieve their dream. Hell, Hyruden, for as weak as he is currently, I still believe that he will unite all the giants in the world and that he will be that thing. But for Tashigi, though, I don't see that happening. I cannot imagine a world where Tashigi actually goes around and claims all of the named blades that belong to criminals. Thankfully, though, because Inu is the king of the world and the leader of the world government, maybe this is a gray area for her, so she can overlook these 19 weapons. Let's hope. You know, speaking of Tashigi, though, jokes aside, I really do hope that she gets a buff in the future, because as it stands, she is utterly disappointing. Which is crazy, because when we first met Tashigi back in Logtown, and then later in Alabasta, it's like, yo, it seems like she might actually scale with Zoro. Same with Smoker. But of course, we kind of left them in the dust, and it's kind of sad, really. Especially given the nature of Zoro and Tashigi's relationship, where whenever he looks at Tashigi, he does think about Kuina, who was a lot stronger than Zoro in the past. In a weird way, it feels like Tashigi is souring the memory of Kuina. But maybe that's just me. Next comment, they say, this chapter is brought to you by the most vicious beatdown Luffy has received in post-time skip. In Gear 5, no less. Yeah. I mean, granted, Luffy has been beaten down before, but this is the most vicious one because he's been stabbed all the way through. I can't recall the last time Luffy has been impaled like this. Last time might have been Katakuri, but even for Katakuri, it simply just went through, it took off a piece of his flesh. But for these, no. Luffy is literally taking these to the heart, I'm assuming. And unlike the cat fight, it's not like Luffy is getting back up anytime soon. No. Last chapter, he couldn't even talk back when Emu was poking fun at his brothers, especially Ace, right? Usually Ace is a sour spot. Luffy will say something, but here, he just said, it's bad, man. It is bad. This says, as crazy as this might sound, I really like how absolutely brutal and merciless Inu is in this chapter. Him stabbing Luffy again and pinning him to a tree is insane. And the way he disrespects Luffy and his brothers, as well as casually trolls him when he pulls out the axe, is hilarious. Emu is elevating more and more to one of my favorite villains in the series. Likewise, I feel the exact same way. I loved his design, I like the Devil Fruit reveal, and with each passing chapter, I'm like, okay, Emu's going up 2 spots. 2 spots there, 3 spots there. Yes, he is a fantastic villain and a well-needed one. Remember, we don't have a lot left to go in the story. Emu is probably one of the final villains we will ever get revealed to. So in my opinion, he does have to be dominating, and Oda has delivered. As far as the trolling with the axe, according to Japanese readers, it gives off the impression that he doesn't even know what weapon's gonna come out next. Like, it really was a surprise to him that the Xingtian axe was next up, which I do think will be pretty fun. Like, Emu can bring out all 1920 weapons, but he can't really pick which one it is. Like, 1 second it's Graham, the next minute it's Muramasa, the next minute it's Xingtian, and Emu's just playing with it. I think that would be really damn dope if it was just a roulette system. This is, that damn raccoon dog is finally using its ability to speak to animals. We'll probably get a convo with Biblo in the next few chapters, yes, I bet so. And brother, it's crazy, because at the beginning of Elbaf, it's like, yo, Chopper was reading books, everything was peaceful, the God Knights weren't even here yet, and Biblo was right beside him.
Right there.
It's like, yo, that was the
Void
best
Century
time
knowledge
to
and
ask
all.
Biblo some questions, but it didn't happen, and now, Oda is making us talk to Biblo in the midst of the Emu battle and the God Knight battle. So whatever Bilbo's gonna drop, in my opinion, is now being elevated. At first, it might have been a casual conversation, but no, because so much is going down right now, because
How to
Elbaf
kill
is in
Emu.
the middle of getting dominated, whatever Bilbo says
Emu's
has
weakness.
to be important. Because let me tell you, if Chopper goes to Biblo, and Biblo simply just yaps a little bit, and it's not relevant to our current situation, it's like, alright Chopper, get the hell out of the library. Luffy needs you right now, brother. Luffy's on the verge of dying, he needs his doctor. This next one says, Luffy is genuinely cooked, bro. Yes, you know, going back to the Chopper thing, I do wonder how Luffy, or if Luffy will recover. Because this isn't like the other attacks he's taken in the past, where he simply wipes it off, you know, he's walking around at 1 HP. No, he is genuinely stabbed by legendary blades. Blades that, mind you, are absorbing his vitality, dude. How does he get out of this? Granted, he still is in Gear 5th, so maybe if he untransforms, the wounds will go away. But even then, we don't know, because Gear 5th is still relatively new to us, right? Even though we've seen it a myriad of times, we still don't know the intricacies of what Luffy can and can't do. So I kind of wonder how he's going to recover. I saw somebody saying that Luffy just needs to eat some food, and while that's typically the answer, I don't think that's going to be the answer here, because Luffy just got done eating food for like 10 chapters. There's no way we pulled the blades out of Luffy, and we're like, hey Luffy, here's some more food, buddy. Time to eat again. Yes, he has a bottomless stomach, but I feel like that'd be a little bit redundant. Next comment says, so awesome that Oda remembered that Chopper could talk to animals finally. It doesn't happen that often, man. You know, it's so funny, because the last time we had this, I can't even remember. That's how rare moments like these actually are. This chapter was all just a Mihawk upscale, dude. We can't avoid him. You know, Mihawk is like the boogeyman here in Elbaf. One, because Shanks keeps on getting brought up, so Mihawk in tandem gets brought up. And two, Nemesis, dude. Nemesis, it does look like Yoru. The attack is just like when Mihawk did a Marineford. And then Oda, that sly dog. We don't even know what he's cooking up yet. But Kendall in the Brook flashback is the only other character in 1,000 chapters to have the same dawn sound effect as Mihawk. Literally, almost every character in the series has it, or almost every prominent character has it, and Kendall shares it with Mihawk. What the hell does it even mean? Yes, this somehow, someway is a Mihawk upscale. Is Yoru connected to the 20 King's blades, or is Yoru not? I do think the idea of, oh, the 20 Kings had their weapons, and then the Ancient Kingdom had theirs, is a pretty fun idea to play with, and maybe Yoru falls within the Ancient Kingdom's weapons, which is a crazy upscale, which I don't know if we want to do, but hey, it is a possibility, right? One day, sooner or later, we will get Mihawk's backstory and lore. It's just a matter of when. This comment says, this guy is making 1,000,000 subs worth content, and yet people are not subscribing to the channel. Go on, guys, show some support and love. I appreciate it, brother. And, you know, this is crazy glaze. I don't think I do this. You know, I do the bare minimum. Brother, look at this setup. It's me in my room talking with one edit right here. You know, I'm doing the bare minimum. I'm just, like, yapping, and I love talking about One Piece, so, you know, it is what it is. But I do appreciate you guys so much for the kind words, and thank you so much for being here, brothers. Zoro's Speak No Evil is the nothing happened moment. Oh, that'd be a nice call-in. I do like that. Yeah, so Luffy's Gear 5, Zoro is Speak No Evil, Sanji's Hear No Evil, then has to be explained. I feel like it could just be a quirky cover page that some random guy requested, but there could also be some deep meaning here, because we have to remember, Oda, he gets hundreds and hundreds of reader requests. He picked this one, though. He picked this one. Emu, remembering Luffy's brothers is insane. It is. You know, it kind of reminds me of the Shanks scene, where Shanks is about to fight Kid, and then here comes Hongo tossing Shanks a newspaper saying, hey, here's the 411, his wounds have healed, that's, you know, Eustace Captain Kidd, he just came out of Wano. Yeah, Emu did his research before he came here, and I do kind of wonder why he's bringing this up. Of course, it could just be that he wants to poke fun at Luffy, but I do think that everything Emu says and or does has some sort of Void Century relevancy, saying, oh, you brothers who do not share the same name. Ah, a very uncouth set. I do think in the Void Century, there were a pact of brothers who also didn't share the same name. I think that is what that is hinting at. I've seen people saying it could just be Satan Arona Emu, Dame D.D. Jones, and then of course, Joy Boy, whatever his real name is. I think they could be the trio of the past. I do like that idea. 13 Holy Knights plus 5 Elder Stars plus Emu equals 19. It all makes sense now. Yes, they can all get an individual weapon. The only problem is that there might be some overlap. Like, for example, Garling and Shamrock. Emu spawns in the family swords. Who gets the Garland blade? Does Garling get it, or does Shamrock get it? I'm assuming Garland would get it because Shamrock already has Cerberus, but we'll see. And then same for Sommers and Jupiter. Boom, we spawn in Graham. Who gets that one? Does Sommers get it, or does Jupiter get it? Speaking of Jupiter, I'm very excited to see what the hell his hybrid form looks like, dude. A half-worm person? Yeah, that's gonna be kind of nasty. So, yeah, when it comes to these weapons, I am excited to see all of them, brother. You know, when it comes to the mythology behind these blades, Oda can realistically pull from any mythology he wants, and I think that's so damn dope. Biblo is finally going to give us a lore piece when Chopper gets to talk to him. Yeah. Dude, Biblo, he probably knows everything. We don't know how old he is, but we know that he came with the library, and he's at least hundreds of years old. The chances of him being a Joy Boy Nakama, in my opinion, are very high. We've been meeting Joy Boy's crew left and right, from Zunisha to now Emmett. If Biblo is one of them, it wouldn't be a shocker. With Shuri about to wake up and Chopper being summoned to talk to Biblo, we are legitimately set up for the biggest lore dump in OP history. Please don't drop the ball on this Oda. Yeah. My one fear, I don't think it's going to happen, but my one fear is that it's going to be like the Vegapunk message all over again. Or if you guys don't remember, every week when we had a Vegapunk message chapter, sorry, I'm like writing an EZA. Harudagar!
Showing your hands to the camera again, Minion. Oh my god.
It's on autoplay, so I just have to hit a button. But every week, we were in Egghead. When Vegapunk was broadcasting, we expected big, juicy, meaty, girthy, sweaty lore drops. Oh, what is Vegapunk gonna say? He went to Elbaf. He learned about the Poneglyphs. He could read Ohara's text. We're gonna get the Ancient Kingdom name. Guess what we got? We got a cliffhanger. We started strong, right? The world is sinking. That was massive. But after that, it kind of just like staggered in the middle. Yes, it is good for the world of One Piece to learn what's actually happening. That's huge. Everybody learning about these events, massive implications. But for us, the audience, we didn't really walk away with any new information, minus the rising water levels.
Doesn't time move faster in Elbaf?
Among the D-Clan, there's... And then we cut out. It's crazy. And then even afterward, right, we see that Kubo's
by the time they leave Elbaf, the whole world is flooded.
You're going past your coding. This must mean the Buccaneer's secret is... Bro, I hope Oda doesn't blue ball us too hard. There will be blue balling involved in Biblo and Shuri's loredom. I just hope that we get equal amounts of ball ejaculation to go alongside the blue balling. Kind of like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. The law of equivalent exchange. We need a perfect 50-50, Oda, please! Don't blue ball us too hard, man. We're the final saga, Oda. Just give us some kernels. Another character to add into this, by the way, besides Shuri and Biblo, would be Scopper. Scopper knows everything. Scopper knows about Lafdale. He was there. He was there. Please give us something, man. I'm thirsty. I scoppered my Gabon to this video, my god. What an apt comment to follow up. When Emu eventually gets bonked by someone, do you think all the weapons spill out like loot in a video game? Okay. That's pretty funny. I don't think so. I don't think Emu is like a treasure goblin where you hit him a couple of times and boom, everything falls out. I guess a good One Piece equivalent would be Gecko Moria. How every time Luffy hit him during Shadow's Asgard, Gecko Moria spits out some souls. I don't think that's gonna happen to Emu, but it's a funny thought. And hey, if we're doing the Gecko Moria parallel, maybe instead of coughing up weapons, he coughs up some Maki, because they are like sentient fireball things. Maybe we hit Emu, and then boom, here comes some Maki saying, oh, I'm free, no more contract, no more devil. Who knows? Who knows? Plot twist. Yoru is the Nefertari weapon. I've seen people saying this. There's nothing about Yoru that screams Nefertari in my opinion, but I will admit, I'm not opposed to the idea. I just don't think the idea has anything going for it yet. That's my main thing. And plus, Yoru, it looks very reminiscent to Nemesis. And Nemesis and Yoru, if you break down the mythology, there is some connection there, right? The goddess of night, and then Yoru means night. It's like, okay, like that could work, right? How many swords do I really got in stock? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus 5. Yeah, Emu, dude. I wonder what the inventory management is like for him. I'm just imagining something like solo leveling. Like, in his POV, he has like a menu right here. He's like, like, what should I do? Should I just roll a lottery? Just RNG it? Let's activate this ability. He feels like an isekai character, brother. Emu doesn't feel like he belongs in One Piece, and I love it. The fact that Chopper can speak to animals or understand them says a lot about him being the forest god. Yeah, that could be a small hint, but it feels like most animals can speak to other animals too. Could be wrong there, but it is One Piece, anything's possible. I totally thought he was gonna say, Oda remembered that Usopp exists. Hey, he exists, and he's gonna come in strong, just wait. You know, when it comes to Usopp, Hyruden, and all the boys over here, I'm not expecting them to do anything crazy, but I am expecting us to respect them by the end of Elbaf. I believe it. I believe it so damn hard. Chapter was so tough, I felt like a caveman, celebrating everything. I agree. This was a phenomenal chapter, and it's only up from here. Buggy stocks are going up like crazy this chapter with each weapon reveal. Emu is cooked if they ever cross paths. Oh yeah? It's like the old school thing, right? You try to cut Buggy, it's not gonna happen. Granted, you know, it's all a joke because hockey exists, but yes, in a 1v1 battle between Buggy and a swordsman, always vote for Buggy. Jinbei is slowly starting to become the funniest straight man in the series. This conversation is unreal. I feel like most of it in One Piece are straight, so it's still a lot of competition. But yeah, Jinbei's hilarious. If anything, I'd say that Loki is the funny one. Because after Jinbei says, hey, you know, he took down an ancient giant, Loki's like, hey guys, like, Fishman, I'm over here. We got some gags here, man. Gabon only has a few chapters left, R.I.P. Yeah, I held a poll on this to see if people thought that Gabon would die or live. I'm pretty 50-50. I am leaning towards Gabon living, just because I feel like his backup is right around the corner. Usopp is there, Hyruden is there, Loki's there. There's too many people around us that can save Scopper to where I'm not super worried for him. Will he take some devastating blows? I think so, but I think he's also going to push through it. I have faith. And plus, I do want that Gabon Rayleigh team up at the end of the day. I like how my first thought at the end of the chapter was, well, Scopper's dead, and it seems like I am not alone. Yeah, the sentiment that Scopper has a lot of death flags, that is very popular. And I don't mind, you know, if Scopper were to die, good death. You know, when it comes to characters dying, I think it's good when we kill characters who we want to live. That might sound crazy, right? Contradictory, if anything, but that's the thing, right? We want deaths that have impact. You know, we're over here killing, I'm trying to think, Oimo or Kashi. If Oimo and Kashi dies, it's like, oh, cool, somebody died, but who cares about them? If Scopper were to die, it's like, damn, I didn't want him to die.
Violent
So
party
now the
increases.
wound is all the more painful. That's what it's all about. So again, I'm pretty 50-50. I'm okay whether he lives or dies, but because I want the old Roger Pirate crew to come together, I kinda hope he lives. Luffy got a sword for every goal scored on by Japan by Brazil this World Cup. We should have seen it coming. Yeah, Oda was over here saying, okay, how many should I do? 1, 2, okay. Zoro's face after the Dragon Nation got blocked. Dude, Summers is living it up, man. Hilarious. Zoro's over here saying, you know, 103 Dragon Damnation, Mercy's 3-sword style, King of Hell mode. Summers? He laughed. Summers? Dude, he just arched his back and he said, yeah, grab. Bro, the amount of upscaling Emu did for the God Knights here, we've never seen it before. Like, this is comparative to Luffy's Gear 4 and Gear 5. Like, it's a big jump. Super Saiyan 1 to Super Saiyan 3. It's like a 100 times multiplicative buff. It is crazy. So, yeah, Summers, I think he has every right to laugh. I mean, hell, I might even hold a poll, like, does Summers just whoop King handedly? I think so. If King plays the same way he did against Zoro, where he just turns off his flames and goes sicko mode, yeah, dude, Summers, woo, he's crazy. And the thing is, keep this in mind, the Summers battle just began. Summers, all he did, all he did was swing his sword. It wasn't even a named attack. Yes, he said Graham, but Graham is just the name of his sword, dude. That's like if Zoro said Enma. Same thing. It is super casual. He's not trying yet. We know that Summers has named attacks when he fought Scopper Gabon. Oh man, it's gonna be busted. And I am banking on Summers being an awakened Paramecium. I want it. Show me what the eBay no Me can actually do, Summers.
eBay
Turn
no
all of
Me.
Elbaf into Vine World. I would love it. And same goes for Killingham too. You know, Killingham, I got him right up there. I want to see what his heating powers can do now that he has Omen and his weapon. We saw that he can spawn nightmares. We saw that he can put people to sleep and pull things out. What else can he do? What do these God Knights have in their bag of devil fruit tricks? Because right now, they're simply showing off weaponry. What about the devil fruits? I think they're going to go absolutely epic insane. And I think that's good. Again, that is a good thing. To have strong opponents is a good thing because that means that Sanji and Zoro are going to have to rise to adversity. We always want our main characters to struggle because without struggle, there is no growth. So yes, please, Summers, please, Killingham, put the wings down, clip 'em, brother. I got way too much energy. Oh man. So what have you guys been up to? Having a good summer so far? Is it hot where you live? I know it's hot over here, dude. It's like 100 degrees. It's crazy. I walked outside today just to throw out the trash, and let me tell you, I swear I heard my skin sizzling, dude. I felt like I was getting roasted, man. 106 degrees, man. It's something. Next one says Oda. Cooked a damn buffet this chapter. Never thought I'd say my favorite chapter in Elbaf would be a chapter when Luffy gets his ass beat the entire chapter. Yeah, I feel the same way, and I think the reason why so many people are on the boat of liking Luffy getting beaten down is because we haven't really seen Gearfit lose yet. Yes, Kaido knocked Gearfit around to where Luffy had to, restart his heart, but aside from that, like, most of the attacks Kaido landed, Luffy laughed it off. Luffy, boom, hit in the back of the head with the combo, smiling, running. Luffy, hit with the bolo breath. Oh, I'm black now. Oh, let me just wipe off the ash. Dude, Luffy cut back Kizaru. He felt pain there, so that one's okay, but it was just a nick on the cheek. Kizaru shooting laser beams. Luffy eats them, swallows them, and just... Imu is finally putting Gearfit through the ringer. Luffy is finally feeling some damage, and we can see it on his face and through his lack of action. This is great. Because beforehand, it's like, can Gearfit really lose as long as Luffy has stamina? Turns out the answer is yes, which I am curious how Luffy's gonna level up past this. Will he have to finally acknowledge what his fruit is? Because again, he still thinks he has the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Eventually, he's going to have to learn that he's the sun god. Is it going to happen here? I wonder. Summers is baby hell. Yeah, yes he is. And I'm glad this coincided. I mean, hell, all of it kind of coincides, right? But Scopper Gaban showing up in front of Imu, the same week we get the Scopper Gaban versus Luffy and Zoro episode, peak. Summers getting bumped up a week after he's introduced in the anime, peak. I love how the anime and the manga are just coincidentally landing side by side. So yeah, brother, Summers is a... If the old dudes don't show up, like the Order of the White Lotus at the end of Avatar The Last Airbender, it's a missed opportunity in my opinion. I agree. If you guys don't get the reference, he is referring to the Scopper Gaban, Rayleigh, Crocus, and the other Roger remnants coming together. And the Order of the White Lotus, they're kind of the same thing. Just a bunch of legendary benders and legendary people, all old now, coming together for one last hoorah. And also, speaking on Summers one last time, I am excited to see what he's going to tell us next. Because Summers, again, unprompted, told us about the 19 weapons. What else is he going to spill the beans about? And also, has Scopper Gaban ever fought Omen's buff, Sword of Wrath brand Summers? I wonder, is this a Summers that not even Scopper Gaban knows about? Because surely at some point in time, Imu gave Summers and said, hey, Summers, I see you're fighting Scopper Gaban again. Here's some powers. Because when Summers got Omen, it didn't seem like it was his first time receiving it, because he was like, oh, goodness, thank you for the Omen. And then even Killingham kind of talked about it too, like this is a normal thing for them. And even the weapons, right? He's like, oh, yeah, he gave us access to these things. It's like, okay, this must have happened in the past. So did the Roger Pirates fight these God Knights? Because if so, that'd be really cool. That would be really damn dope. Side with the drip. Zoro and Sanji gonna have a wake-up call just how Luffy is getting. I almost shed a tear seeing Luffy getting done, like how Imu is doing. Shows that the monster trio are still not there yet. For Pirates and Navy, yeah, they're Yonko crew, but for the world, for the king of the world, I don't know yet. This chapter with the lore drops, the action, and the stakes going up was all so good. I agree. As far as Zoro and Sanji winning or losing, I'm just so in the middle about that. Again, at the start of all that, I was high. Like, okay, Zoro and Sanji, they're winning, no doubt in my mind. And then, as time has gone on, I'm getting more and more shaky about it. But I do agree with this comment right here. I do think the best way to send Imu home, aside from the time limit that Imu apparently has, would be if Zoro and Sanji beat Summers and Killingham. Because Oda did introduce a weakness with the Covenants, where if a God Knight dies, Imu does feel that damage. It does tax it to some extent. So I think this is the most plausible way to get rid of the King of the World. This is the best way to save Luffy, Usopp, Howard, and Loki, and all of them. Is for Zoro and Sanji to lock in and beat their opponents. And realistically, yes, Super Summers is crazy, yes, Super Killingham is insane, but they're still more realistic to beat than Imu. Dude, I would much rather fight those guys than their boss. Howard will wield Ragnar till Loki recovers, calling it now. That's not bad. Yeah, it's just a matter of whether or not Ragnar can change size. Because as it stands, Ragnar is like the same size as Hyrden, right? Because Loki is like 5 times the size of Hyrden. So, yeah, if anybody wields Ragnar, whether it's Hyrden or Usopp, Ragnar is going to have to shrink down a little bit. It's crazy. Luffy must have really powered up. He's still in Gear 5th after all of those devastating attacks. Yeah, I am surprised he's not going into his old man form, especially, again, because Emu's sword drains vitality. You would think that right when he gets stabbed, boom, black hair, old man, tongue out and everything. But no, he's still in Gear 5th. He still has the will to fight within him. By the way, this chapter raises my respect to Hyrden by 100. As an older brother falling shorter to his younger brother, his conviction inspires me. It is so good. And I feel like Hyrden hasn't gotten a lot of respect in the story in general. So I really do hope that Hyrden locks in and he does something good. And an old friend of mine, he actually messaged me and he said, yo, did you notice that Hyrden is missing an eye in this chapter, right? Bandages are covering one of his eyes because Emu hit him with the Maki Bomb prior. Looks like it hit his face so badly that Hyrden now has to cover one of his eyes. And they're like, yo, that is just like Odin from Norse mythology. We have Loki, who's like a mixture of Loki and Thor, and then Hyrden is just there. Who in Norse mythology does Hyrden represent? Well, now that we have the eye coverage, he could be representative of Odin. And plus, in Dressrosa, his attack was Gungnir, which is Odin's spear. Not to mention, too, but Rode, he has 2 crows in his play castle that were Odin's crows. There's a good chance that Hyrden is going to live up to the name of Odin. I don't know what that means. Does that mean that he's going to get really strong and he's going to get Conqueror's Hockey like his father? Or is he simply going to look really cool? We'll see. But either way, I am expecting some really good things when it comes to him and Usopp. Last one. A Sea Stone Sword would be insane. Yeah. I mean, the closest we have to a Sea Stone Sword is just Smoker's Jeet, but it's just the tip of the Jeet, and then you can just break the rest of it, and then it doesn't really matter. But yeah, you know, Sea Stone Sword, Sea God Sword, draining your energy. Yeah, that is OP in a world filled with devil roots. But that is it for today, guys. Let me know your thoughts on all this down below. Amazing chapter yet again. And when 1190 drops, dude, I am expecting some heat, because right after 1190 releases, it looks like we're going to be hitting another break. So be prepared for some massive blue balls. Catch y'all later. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. I really freaking appreciate it. You guys stay safe, stay cool, and I'll catch y'all later. Peace, peace.
YouTube day. It is Thursday, January 19th at 2:17 p.m. PST. And you have not yet hit that thumbs up. What the hell? Let's go. Welcome on in, everybody. We're back on Mario Maker 2. I haven't streamed Mario Maker 2 in a few weeks. Back on the grind for 3,000 expert levels, man. And we only have 19 lives. Which is a little concerning. So we better be careful. What did I just say, man? What's up, everybody? You're watching my Invictus run and just got a live notification. Nice, nice. Yeah, I just posted my all exits Invictus PB on my 3rd YouTube channel. If you guys haven't seen it yet. I'm a little unsure of what to do here, actually. YOLOing to the right didn't really seem like such a bad idea. I literally don't see anywhere else to go except for maybe down here, so I guess we'll try this. Oh my gosh, Jess. Ooh. Oh, it's way more. So I got the harder jump and didn't get that one. Dude, chill out, Boom Boom. Jess Simpson just donated $100. Kicking off the stream with a $100 donation. What the heck? Jess. Holy crap. Jess, thank you so much. Balls. 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 Jess.
So tell me, is this American sailor really, really smart or really, really dumb? Now the guy's name is Doug, and Doug is 20 when this story starts, and he's living in Clark, South Dakota, and Doug really wants to get out of this small town, and he wants to see the world. So in 1966, he starts thinking about joining the military. I mean, he's never been a hero type, but joining the military will get him out of this small town, and he'll get to see the world while he figures out what to do with his life. So he enlists in the Navy. And a year later, in 1967, he's already deployed in the South China Sea, and the Vietnam War is going on. So one night, Doug is aboard a U.S. warship in the Gulf of Tonkin, which is bordered by Vietnam, when suddenly, kaboom, the ship starts firing on some targets on the coast. And the crew on board, they're working together, loading the ship's massive turrets, and blam, 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 they're firing. And this goes on for hours. Now Doug, he's below deck, trying to sleep, and he can't because of all the chaos going on above. So he climbs up to the deck to watch what's going on. And as soon as he comes out, blam, one of the ship's guns fires again, and boom, the blast is so powerful that it sends a shockwave that knocks Doug straight off the boat and into the water. And immediately he starts screaming, "Help!" But it's dark, and the guns are really loud, and everyone is focused on the battle. So no one hears him or even realizes that he's gone. And the ship keeps moving. And a few minutes later, it's totally gone. And poor Doug, he's completely alone in the middle of the ocean, far from home. And the coast is just too far away to swim to. Now, luckily, Doug is a strong swimmer, and he's able to keep himself afloat. And hours pass. And he's still out there, and he's still treading water, hoping that his ship will come back and find him. Then, a boat appears, with some fishermen on it, and they've spotted Doug, and they pull him aboard. Now, these guys are North Vietnamese, which means that they're on the opposing side of the war. But whatever, there's not much Doug can do. He's been floating for hours now, and he needs all the help he can get. Now, eventually, they get to land, and they hand Doug over to North Vietnamese soldiers. And from there, he's then taken to the infamous prison called the Voila, or the Hanoi Hilton, where lots of American prisoners of war are held. So, the North Vietnamese question Doug, and he tells them, "I fell off my ship." And they don't believe his story for a second. I mean, no one accidentally falls off a warship and survives for hours in the ocean and then just happens to be rescued by fishermen. So they start thinking he's a spy. And Doug, he quickly realizes that he's in serious danger. I mean, if they believe he's a spy, they might torture him to try and get intel out of him. They might even kill him. And obviously he doesn't want that. So he comes up with a plan. He's gonna convince them that he's a total dumbass who's completely useless to them. Maybe then they'll just take him to prison and not kill him. So when the soldiers start interrogating him, he acts like an idiot. Like, he acts all confused, and he pretends that he doesn't understand what they're asking, and when he does give an answer, he just says complete nonsense. But the soldiers keep pressing him, and they keep threatening him. But Doug, he never breaks character. He keeps making himself look like the dumbest sailor they've ever met. And hours pass, and the North Vietnamese have gotten nowhere with him. So finally, they give up. They start believing that maybe Doug is actually an idiot who somehow fell off his own ship. In fact, they become so convinced of his stupidity that they nickname him the Incredibly Stupid One. And so ultimately, they decide to throw him into a prison cell. And here's where the story gets real interesting. So Doug gets thrown into a cell with this guy, Stratton. And Stratton happens to be a lieutenant commander of the Navy. So now they're spending a lot of time together and they get to talking a lot. And pretty quickly, Stratton realizes that what Doug is doing is actually kind of genius. Because if the guards think he's an idiot, they'll think he's harmless and they'll keep their guard down. Which means that while he's a prisoner of war, Doug might be able to gather valuable intelligence for the United States. So he encourages Doug to keep the act going. And that's exactly what Doug does. He keeps acting like a dumbass day after day after day. And before long, the prison guards become completely comfortable around him. Like they trust him now. And unlike most prisoners, they allow him to move freely around the prison camp doing small jobs like sweeping and cleaning and stuff. And Doug, he makes the most of his freedom. Whenever no one's looking, he'll quietly sabotage their equipment. Like he'll pour handfuls of dirt and sand into the fuel tanks of their military trucks. He also watches the troop movements around the camp, and he memorizes the prison camp's layout and the exact location. And at one point, the North Vietnamese soldiers try using Doug in propaganda pieces. Like they want him to write anti-American statements, and they want him to be featured in anti-war broadcasts. But when they hand him a script for a confession that he's supposed to write, he basically just tells them he's illiterate. And he's always acted kind of off, so they believe him. They even try to get him a tutor to teach him to read so that they could then use him for the propaganda, but he continues to act too stupid to be taught. So eventually, they give up. Now, regarding what Stratton suggested he do, which is gather up intelligence just in case he's rescued, Doug is all over that idea. So he begins secretly meeting with American prisoners throughout the camp, and he memorizes everything he can about them. Their names, their ranks, even many of their social security numbers. But he never writes any of this information down. Because if the North Vietnamese soldiers find that he's actually literate and much smarter than he let on, then they'll probably go back to believing that he's a spy, and then they could potentially execute him. So instead of writing all that stuff down, Doug commits everything to memory by turning the names and stuff into songs using the tune of Old MacDonald Had a Farm. So over the next several months, he memorizes information on around 256 American prisoners of war, which could be very useful information. However, at this point, it isn't clear if he's ever going to get out of this place. Until 1969. It's around this time that the North Vietnamese decide to release a small group of American prisoners as sort of a PR move. And one of the prisoners they decide to release is Doug. So they let him go, and after 852 days of being in lockup, he finally gets to return to the United States. And he is immediately debriefed by military intelligence, and he gives them everything. All the information that he memorized during his captivity, the names of the other POWs, their capture dates, their personal details, camp conditions, the torture, the layout, even the route to the prison that he had memorized. And all this information proves extremely valuable to the U.S. military because it helps them account for missing American troops, and it shows them where they're being held. And so now the North Vietnamese can't quietly execute any of the troops because they're accounted for. Which, like I said, Doug didn't get into all this to be a hero, but ultimately he ended up being a hero. And while the U.S. didn't win this war, Doug himself was ultimately nominated for numerous military honors, and he ends up being awarded the Prisoner of War Medal. So, good for him. So why did these guys think it was a good idea to kidnap Frank Sinatra's son? Now the story all starts with this guy, Barry. And Barry is 21 when all this begins, and he's living in Los Angeles. And Barry, he's actually doing pretty well for himself. He's a stock trader, making decent money, living a good life. But then, one day in 1961, the worst thing happens to him. Because he's driving along one day, and kaboom, he gets into a really bad car accident. And I guess this messes him up pretty bad, and he has to take painkillers so he's not in pain all the time, and then he ends up getting addicted to those painkillers. And because of that, he loses his job, and he eventually ends up losing all his money. So now it's 1963, and Barry has a problem. He's broke, he's addicted to painkillers, and he's desperate for money. And at this point, he'll do whatever it takes to get some. So that same year, he comes up with one of the more insane ideas I've heard since I started storytelling. Why not kidnap someone and hold them for ransom? Oh, but not just anyone, someone famous. And he decides to target Frank Sinatra's, the singer, his son. Now, Barry is new at this whole kidnapping thing. He has no idea how to hold someone for ransom, and he figures he'll need some help. So he recruits 2 goons to assist him, and he offers to pay them $100 a week. And together, the 3 of them come up with a solid plan to kidnap Frank Sinatra's son. Now, Frank Sinatra's son is this guy, Frank Sinatra Jr., who we'll just call Junior. Now, Junior is 19 years old, and he's just starting to make a name for himself and launch his own career as a jazz singer, and he's like touring all the time. So Barry and the 2 goons, they start tracking Frank's performance schedule, and they follow him from city to city, because they're going to kidnap him while he's on the road performing. That way he'll be more vulnerable. Now, at one point, Junior is scheduled to do a show at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. And so Barry calls the hotel and he asks if he can get Junior's room number. But the hotel switchboard operator tells him that someone just assassinated the president, John F. Kennedy, because the JFK assassination had just happened and it's all anyone is talking about. But this makes Barry realize that he can't just kidnap Junior now. It won't get the news coverage that he wants because the JFK death is dominating the headlines, which could mean the ransom won't be as high. So they wait. And 2 weeks later, the noise has died down a little, and Barry decides to try again. And by this point, Junior's tour lands in State Line, Nevada, where he's doing a show at the Harrah's Club in Tahoe. So that night, before the show starts, Junior is just hanging out in his hotel room with one of the musicians in his band, and bam, 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 someone knocks on the door. And so Junior answers it, and it's Barry and one of the goons, and they're pretending to be delivering a package. But then, suddenly, boom, Barry pulls out a gun, and Junior's like, oh shit! Then Barry and the goon blindfold the guys, and they tie up the musician friend, and they walk Junior out to their car. Then they force him to take a couple of sleeping pills and some whiskey, and they force him to lay down in the back seat, and they flee the scene. Meanwhile, the musician friend they tied up is able to free himself, and he finds the tour manager, and the tour manager contacts the police. And pretty quickly, the police and the FBI are crawling all over the Lake Tahoe area, like they got roadblock checkpoints set up because they're looking for Junior. And Barry and his goon, they actually get caught up at one of the roadblocks, with Junior still passed out in the back seat. And Barry knows that police at the roadblock, they're looking for 2 kidnappers. So while they're waiting in line for the checkpoint, Barry has the goon low-key jump out of the car and sneak off into the woods. So when Barry pulls up to the checkpoint, police only see him in the car, along with a guy in the back seat, passed out, kind of underneath a blanket. And so Barry's just like, yeah, that's my buddy back there. He had too much to drink. And police believe him, and they let him go, and he makes it through the checkpoint. Meanwhile, Frank Sinatra finds out that his son has been kidnapped. He immediately flies to Reno, Nevada to help get this sorted out. And the FBI sets him up in a hotel, and they tell him to wait for a ransom call because they're certain there's going to be a ransom call. The FBI's plan is to wait for the kidnappers to call, then pay the ransom they ask for, and then track the money, and that will lead them right to the kidnappers. Now, eventually, Barry and the other 2 goons, they meet up at their hideout, which is just a rented house in San Bernardino Valley. But once they get to this house, they are watching the news, and they learn that Frank Sinatra is in a hotel in Reno waiting for a ransom call. So one of the goons calls the hotel, and they put him through to Frank in his
I'm
hotel
gonna
room.
return and try to find this guy.
Gives him a ransom demand. And immediately, Frank Sinatra is like, I'll give you $1 million if you just give my son
Bedtime.
back.
Thanks
But
for
the
tuning in,
kidnappers, They
everybody.
don't want $1 million. I mean, they're worried it'll be too much to carry and launder.
See a good amount of people up in here chilling. Thank you guys for the views. But unfortunately, I gotta go get some rest. We're just ordinary.